Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est long, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire.
New tonight, President-elect Biden warning of multiple national security threats facing the United States, including obstruction from the Trump administration with the transition and the overall state of key agencies after 4 years of President Trump.
We have encountered roadblocks from the political leadership at the Department of Defense and the Office of Management and Budget. Right now, we just aren't getting all the information that we need for the outgoing administration in key national security areas. It's nothing short, in my view, of irresponsibility. Truth is, many of the agencies that are critical to our security have incurred enormous damage. Many of them have been hollowed out in personnel, capacity, and in morale.
Out front now, retired Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman, who was a key witness in President Trump's impeachment probe. He was the former European Affairs Director at the National Security Council under President Trump. A highly decorated 21-year veteran of the U.S. Army, he retired this past July. Lieutenant Colonel, thank you so much for joining us. This is only your second interview since leaving the military. I want to get to you and your family's experience over this past year and a half a bit later in this conversation. But let's begin with what President-elect Biden just said. How unusual and how troubling is this to you as someone who worked at the NSC?
Hi, Bianna. Thank you for having me on. I'll say that just listening to President-elect Biden speak, he clearly understands the scope of the issues that he'll face when he steps in as President of the United States on January 20th. I've tried to speak on this issue and the deep concern from serving military officers, from serving officials about the impact of the Trump administration on those institutions, the erosion of those institutions, really starting early on with the Department of Justice, working way through state, and ultimately through the Department of Defense. And there will be an enormous amount of rebuilding that President Biden and his cabinet will have to undertake in order to just simply undo the damage, let alone move this country forward and advance U.S. interests.
So this sounds like a trend that you have experienced over the past few years while you worked at this administration, and perhaps aren't that surprised to see, but thus are alarmed by?
I'm deeply alarmed. I think we should not forget about the fact that there are thousands, tens of thousands of public servants serving in all of our departments and agencies day to day, seeking to protect our interests. But what has happened under the Trump administration is he's effectively scraped off that top layer of leadership, that layer of leadership that is supposed to provide the direction for the institution, aligned with laws and advancing U.S. interests. And that is the layer that has been corrupted and corrupting those institutions. We saw even late transitions within the Department of Defense that eroded the confidence in the effectiveness of the leadership of that department that's occurred in many other departments and agencies over the past 4 years. And I think that the Biden administration has some excellent people that they'll be able to place in to start rebuilding. But that is exactly what they'll have to do. They'll have to rebuild before they start tackling some of the most difficult challenges facing our nation.
And President-elect Biden also warned that we are still learning the full extent of the massive cyber attack against the U.S. You tweeted shortly after the attack became public that while the why now was difficult to ascertain, the why is clear. 4 years of President Trump undermining deterrence. The U.S. government can only do so much when a president of the United States is a Putin fanboy. We are less safe. So you see a direct connection between the attack and Trump's refusal to ever condemn Putin?
I think that is exactly right. And I think that even within the past several days after the attack, after the Secretary of State identified and attributed the attack to the Russians, the president coming out and trying to deflect away from Russia, from China, these are just very troubling events that further undermine any caution on the part of the Russians to continue to conduct these kinds of attacks. We usually refer to this as deterring Russia through our own strength. We still have the most powerful military in the world. We have the most potent capabilities the world has ever seen. We have a massive economy. But what we don't have is we don't have the leadership that will show the resolve to defend U.S. interests. And that's really what we've had over the course of the last 4 years, is that the president has eroded these very fundamental principles. And we are going to be entering a period of relearning for the Russians. The Russians will quickly understand that the Biden administration will not allow these attacks on the United States interests to go unanswered. And based on the fact that they've become accustomed to getting away with it, there's going to have to be some relearning and some increased risk of confrontation as the Russians continue to toy around, continue to interfere in U.S. domestic affairs, continue to undermine national security, and we will bring them to heel eventually.
Yeah, you were actually calling for a democracy summit in a piece that you've written for Foreign Affairs recently. Lieutenant Colonel, if you can stick around for a few moments, we want to have you back after the break. More with Alexander Vindman. What are members of the military thinking tonight about the commander-in-chief? And Trump is heading to Georgia to stump for Republican runoff candidates. But is there an influence even greater than the president?
I always vote for the candidate that most aligns with my Christian faith.
And breaking news, 109 House Republicans defying President Trump tonight, joining with Democrats to override President Trump's veto of the $740 billion National Defense Authorization Act, a sweeping defense bill that also included a pay raise for the men and women risking their lives to serve our country. And still with me is retired Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Vindman. It has been a year since the president's impeachment, which really upended your career and life. Both you and your twin brother were removed from your posts at the NSC, and you ultimately left the Army after intense pressure from the president and his allies to deny your promotion to colonel. Given that, everything you went through, did the top brass in the military do enough to support and protect you?
The bottom line is no, they haven't. And I think in certain ways they probably have misrepresented the Secretary of Defense, a former Secretary of Defense, Esper, probably misrepresented the amount of support I was receiving. At no point did any senior leader, civilian or military, attempt to contact me and indicate that I was still in good standing in the military. Certainly, after I left the White House, I had no contact with anybody that could have indicated that my military career would move forward as normal.
It's really disappointing to hear because, you and I both, as small children, came to this country as political refugees fleeing the Soviet Union. You famously testified that your dad shouldn't worry about you telling the truth because, quote, here right matters. You know, the last time someone questioned my loyalty or called me a Russian sympathizer was maybe in third grade. Yet you have President Trump and members of Congress questioning your loyalty after coming forward. Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn famously tweeted, Adam Schiff is hailing Alexander Vindman as an American patriot. How patriotic is it to badmouth and ridicule our great nation in front of Russia, America's greatest enemy? She's not alone. Other members of Congress did the same. Trump may be leaving, but those lawmakers are still in office. So what is your message to other immigrants who may want to serve this country in some form of capacity and look at that and say, you were right and you were punished for doing the right thing, and maybe here right doesn't matter? What is your message to them?
Sure. So I think that in the end, I have no regrets about how things turned out. Yes, I left the military unforeseen. I had every intention of staying on, going on to war college. But I think my role may have been, in certain ways, more important in that I was able to do my part, defend this nation in a very meaningful manner, and expose corruption by the chief executive. And I feel in that regard that I've served my nation, and I've had the privilege to serve with countless military officers, civilian personnel. I think many of those folks were on display as witnesses in the impeachment hearings. And the United States had a chance to see the excellence of these individuals. And that's what I kind of see immigrants latching onto, not the negative and the costs associated with this particular administration, this president, who frankly acts more like a child, highly impulsive, and the normalcy that people have come to expect from our leadership. They see honorable service, people doing the right thing. Yes, there might be some costs associated with it, but you could move on, you could recover, and you could play your part in protecting this nation.
It is Tuesday, the 29th of December of 2020, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef. And our daily special is Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. You know, a small scant dash, a mere pinch of hot smoked Hungarian paprika will make all the difference in the world. And historically, it shows that it always has. Look it up. Hey, another big news day. We're counting down to when Trump gets kicked out of office. Is he going to show up to the inauguration with tanks, line up like they did to Sadat? Yeah, look that one up. Boy, I hope it's not another one of those Sadat, parades. I wouldn't put it past this guy. Now, some good news did come out today, and I believe David mentioned it. I had mentioned it to him as we handed off to his show earlier today. And that is the Hotel Harrington in D.C. canceled the Proud Boys reservations. They're closing the whole hotel down to all paying guests, except for those who are longtime residents who call the hotel their home. And no Proud Boy does that. So they are really upset. Absolutely apoplectic, as we like to say in radio. Do we? Well, here we do. And I think that's good news. It's sort of poking them in the eye now, isn't it? And it's also, look, if I was the Hotel Harrington, I would want to distance myself from those people as much as possible. Now, in America, the Proud Boys will be the first to tell you, especially if a black or brown person's involved. Every business has the right to deny service to anybody who they want. No shirt, no shoes, no service. It's right up there on the wall in every business. Except when white people who are bullies and Proud Boy types. Except when they are denied service. For any reason. You don't have to give a reason. I just don't like the cut of your jib, get out. Business people tend to not want to tell their customers to get out because in these times of peril, people need money. But think of that. the liability, the marketing, the future of that business is much more valuable than not being in business for several days while these goons are out in the streets trying to commit a coup. Now, they canceled these reservations ahead of the January 6th, what Trump called a wild time. They're going to go wild in the streets, folks, and that's why the Hotel Harrington said, we want nothing to do with that. Now, the Hotel Harrington has been a very popular mustering place for these seditious insurrectionists like the Proud Boys, 3%ers, and their ilk for quite some time. And the Hotel Harrington has basically said, we've had enough. You know, you weren't good guests before, and you are certainly not going to be good guests now. In fact, you're going to be worse. Also, when you look at those guys, do you really think that, they kept the hotel rooms in proper order? Yeah, I think that they added extra work to the staff just to get the smell out. Ooh. Apparently none of them bathe. I mean, well, rarely. Just look at them. Who wants that running our country? Well, they serve a purpose for Donald Trump. And he wants them wilding in the streets. And they will do it. They already have. And I'm glad that the Hotel Harrington said, hey, we've had enough. No shirt, no shoes, no fealty to a representative democracy. No service. Good for them. Well, that was a fairly extended clip at the top with Alexander Vindman, and he is a true hero. No doubt about that. And not just because he stood up to Donald Trump and then retired on principle. Of course, they pushed him out. But he went outstanding. So, basically breaking down, our pretty much our government has been hollowed out. I wonder to what purpose. You know, we were hacked by the Russians and are being hacked right now. And when I say hacked, you know, those are like bombing runs. We're being bombed, carpet bombed right now. So I think Vindman laid it out very succinctly, and Joe has been obstructed even more now. Trump sycophants in the actual machinations of the machinery, not just machinations, the machinery of our government, telling the incoming administration, we don't recognize you. That's not American. How dare they? How dare they? But they dare. And I don't know. The courts keep saying, you lose, you lose, you lose. And apparently now, this is related in a way. Just bear with me now. Apparently Gallup says that Trump is the most admired man now. And he has taken over Obama's place as the most admired man. Admired for what? And by whom? Because in that same poll, somehow Trump went from 43% popularity to 39%. I'm amazed it's that high. But, you know, it's around the toxic third that we always have. So his popularity decreased. He's never been popular, but somehow he's admired for destroying democracy. I don't get that Gallup poll. I really don't. But it's Gallup. So that's why we don't get it. Maybe they're showing that, you know, we can manipulate at the top and don't do anything there at the bottom, because apparently Michelle Obama and Kamala are admired women. But Trump is the most admired man over Obama. I guess it says something about the character of someone. I don't know who those someones might be. Speaking of someones, why is the Nashville suicide bomber not called a terrorist? In fact, they're having a hard time calling him the suicide bomber. I mean, the guy had a bomb and he suicided himself. He's a suicide bomber. And he did it at a very critical junction of our communications apparatus on purpose. But he's sad, troubled, and white. They can't call him a terrorist. They can't even call him a suicide bomber. He expired from a quick mass of energy. That's how the New York Times would put it. Oh no, he didn't bomb himself to death. Yee. So we got that going for us. Same old, same old. I guess we're going to get back to normal, huh? Yeah. Sad, troubled, and white. What's on the rest of the menu here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy? One of the Tyson food managers fired for betting on how many workers would contract COVID-19 and then maybe even die said that the office pool was a morale boost and just spontaneous fun. I wonder what that says about the character of someone and their someones. Oregon's Kurt Schrader is one of the 2 House Dems to vote against the $2,000 checks for COVID relief, and we're not going to forget. And a Phoenix police officer is under investigation for threatening to assassinate the mayor. Well, that kind of stuff's going around, almost like a virus. I hope they get inoculated pretty soon. After the break, we move to the chef's table, where the Swiss will hand over the remaining $150 million to the U.S., from the massive Robert Allen Stanford Ponzi scheme. Yeah, I thought I'd dig back into history and show how justice finally comes to fruition. Finally. And Putin issued a court order for opposition leader Alexei Navalny to return to Russia so he can get poisoned again. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. At the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, to the rightish of the page is the chat room link. Right there by the social media scroll, Kelly Lincoln takes care of monitoring the chat room, and thank you, Kelly, for doing that, and so much more, too. She's been busy in real life, and she's very busy here at the station, so kudos. If you would then take a look to the leftish of the page across from the chat room link there near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com, you will then notice the link to our Patreon page. If you could become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio and possibly send us the equivalent of, how about an espresso type coffee drink? Oh, that just came off the top of my head. If you can send those funds our way, we are able to stretch those dollars, and we have a lot of history in doing so. And we also then are able to pay our bills, fly under the radar, continue resisting, and it looks like there's going to be a lot of, animosity from these losers. And they're not going to shut up. And they're going to gum up the works right and left, and we have to resist it. And I guess we still have to be Resistance Radio now, don't we? Anyway, your monthly contribution to this effort allows us to fulfill our civic duty and pay our bills, which is, I guess, even more than a civic duty now, isn't it? But thank you for your generosity, all kidding aside. And yes, thank you. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, Tom takes care of that. Thank you, Tom. Find us there at Netroots Radio. Follow me on Twitter at Justice Putnam. I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Codes about 10 minutes before showtime, and then get that linked up on Twitter and other social media platforms, as one does. Follow the show on Twitter at Cookbook West, and pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, and wherever podcasts can be found. Ryan J. Foley of the Associated Press brings us this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. One of the Tyson food managers fired for betting on how many workers would contract COVID-19 at an Iowa pork plant said the office pool was just spontaneous fun and intended to boost morale. Oh, they were so sad. The supervisors were sad supervisors. Don Merschbrock, a former night manager at the plant in Waterloo, Iowa, said he was speaking in an attempt to show that the 7 fired supervisors are not the evil people that Tyson has portrayed. I think that there's more than Tyson who's portrayed them as evil. Just don't call it banal. We really want to clear our names, he told the AP. We actually worked very hard and took care of our team members well. Oh, so betting on who's going to fail at keeping them well, that's how you boost morale in your office? All right. We just want to clear our names, he said again. Now, Tyson announced the terminations of the Waterloo managers on December 16th, weeks after the betting allegations surfaced in wrongful death lawsuits filed by the families of 4 workers who died of COVID-19. I wonder who won the office pool on that. Tyson said an investigation led by former U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder found sufficient evidence to terminate those involved, saying their actions violated the company's values of respect and integrity. The company had asked Holder's law firm to investigate the allegation after a public backlash threatened to damage his brand and demoralize his workers as if that wasn't enough already. The Springdale, Arkansas-based company, one of the world's largest meat producers, did not release Holder's findings and fired managers have complained that they were let go without explanation, as if you needed to explain what they did. Of course, this guy, one of the 7, says, "Oh, we're not evil." You are the prime example for the banality of evil, mofo. Look it up. Now, Merschbach released a statement and elaborated in an interview that he was more willing to speak than the other fired managers since he isn't a named defendant in the lawsuits. Well, lucky him. He said managers conducted the office pool last spring within minutes of following mass testing of the plant's roughly 2,800 workers. County officials said last May that more than 1,000 workers tested positive for the virus, which hospitalized several and killed at least 6. They have blasted Tyson for not initially providing workers adequate protective gear and for idling the plant only after the outbreak had ripped through the city. Lawyers for the estates of 4 dead workers have portrayed the betting pool as indicative of the company's callous attitude toward health and safety. They have alleged that managers downplayed the severity of the virus at times, allowing or encouraging employees to work while sick. Wow, that sounds very familiar now, doesn't it? Anonymous worker bees at the Oregonian bring us this next offering here in the Bistro Cafe part of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Oregon Congressman Kurt Schrader, representing the state's 5th district, was one of just 2 Democrats who voted against a bill that would increase COVID-19 relief checks from $600 to $2,000. Schrader spoke on the House floor against H.R. 9051, also known as the Cash Act, calling it an ineffective and poorly targeted approach to aiding Americans in distress. It is clearly a last-minute political maneuver by the president, and extremists on both sides of the political spectrum, oh, he's got both sides it now, is he? Who have been largely absent during months of very hard negotiations. Excuse me? We passed the HEROES Act back in April, you little mofo. I wonder where you were on that. Anyway, he and Daniel Lipinski, everybody's going to find out about Lipinski. In fact, he's the one that everybody's talking about. But Schrader, we're going to talk about him now. Were the only two Democrats who did not support the bill. Donald Trump called for the additional assistance. It passed 275 to 134 with 231 Democrats and 44 Republicans voting for it. And they want to get rid of Nancy. And when I say they, I know, and you know what I mean by they. 130 Republicans voted against it, and 20 Republicans decided not to vote because they're afraid of their constituents and Donald Trump. The two independents also voted against the measure. Under the bill, Americans who earn $75,000 or less in 2019 would be eligible for the 2001 time payment. Couples who reported an adjusted gross income up to $150,000 would receive $4,000. The income limit per couple is $112,500 for the highest earner or the head of the household. Okay, wow, whichever comes first. Schrader criticized the approach, saying, people who are making six-figure incomes and have not been impacted by COVID-19 do not need checks. The bill now heads to the GOP-controlled Senate, where the outcome is uncertain. Bob Brigham of Raw Story brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. Authorities in Arizona are investigating a police officer for threatening to assassinate the mayor of Phoenix in a dispute over taxpayer funding of his department. On the afternoon of October 21, 7 Phoenix police officers gathered for a briefing in a Cave Creek station when the meeting diverged into a discussion about the Defund the Police movement. When Officer Stephen Polis expressed his thoughts, the room went quiet. If the mayor defends the police, I'm going to shoot her, Polis's sergeant recalled hearing the officer say, referring to Mayor Kate Gallego. You are not going to shoot the mayor, the sergeant reportedly replied. Well, that's a promise anyway, Polis allegedly responded. Now, the Arizona Republic newspaper noted some officers had slightly different recollections. One said, if they defund us, the first person on my list is the mayor. And another recalled, if they defund the police, I'll go over to the mayor's house and shoot it up. Wow. Well, it's pretty close to what the sergeant said he said. Polis reportedly told his sergeant after the meeting that he was only joking about shooting the mayor. Yeah, they're always only joking when it finds out that, they might get in trouble. The comments, whether made in jest or not, were taken seriously. The Phoenix Police Department asked Tempe Police to criminally investigate the case. Phoenix Police also opened an internal affairs investigation to determine if Polis violated any policies. That report has not been released, the Arizona Republic reported. The Tempe Police detective has forwarded the report to the Maricopa County Attorney's Office, which will decide if it will prosecute Polis. The case was submitted for review of charges of making a terrorist threat and threatening or intimidating someone, according to the police report. Polis appears to be unfamiliar with the mayor's political stances because, hey, if they're Democrats, they must be socialists, right? That's what everybody says, even Nikki Haley. Polis's comments were made as some city council members and advocates have demanded transparency and accountability from the Phoenix Police Department in police shootings and for police misconduct. While Gallego has been supportive of creating a civilian oversight office to review police shootings and excessive force claims, she has not supported cutting the police department's budget. In fact, Gallego and the city council has voted to increase the police department's budget in June and last year when she became mayor. State Representative Norma Torres said, "The remarks do sound like a terrorist threat." Well, they are. Let's get to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
I'm Scientific American Assistant News Editor Sarah Lewin Fraser, and here's a short piece from the December 2020 issue of the magazine in the section called Advances, Dispatches from the Frontiers of Science, Technology, and Medicine. The article is titled Quick Hits, and it's a rundown of some non-coronavirus stories from around the globe. In the U.S., western Joshua trees will get a year of temporary endangered species status in California, while the state considers permanently listing the distinctive succulents as the first ever plant species protected because of climate change-related threat. In Panama, a tropical forest ground survey revealed that one lightning strike often damages more than 20 trees, a quarter of which can die within a year. Researchers combined the finding with satellite data to estimate that lightning kills 200 million tropical trees worldwide every year, a significant cause of their demise. In Greenland, climate researchers discovered records of an automatic weather station that measured negative 93.3 degrees Fahrenheit one day in December 1991, a temperature colder than the average on Mars, and the coldest ever recorded in the Northern Hemisphere. In Italy, scientists have examined a shark found south of Sardinia that somehow survived to 3 years old without skin or teeth. They concluded it was a genetic mutation and planned to check nearby sediment for potential pollutant causes. In China, newly discovered and pristinely preserved fossils suggest 2 sleeping dinosaurs were buried alive in an underground burrow 125 million years ago. The burrow may have collapsed under volcanic debris. In Australia, a new study shows how grassland's strange barren patches, called fairy circles, are landscaped by the grasses themselves. Baking heat creates a hard clay crust over a patch of ground. Water runs off of it, forming a more welcoming zone at its edges that grasses bolster as they grow and cool the soil. That was Quick Hits. I'm Sarah Lewin Fraser.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Welcome to A Cup of Health with CDC, a weekly feature of the MMWR, the Morbidity and Mortality Weekly Report. I'm your host, Dr. Kathleen Dooling. From a very young age, we're encouraged to eat fruits and vegetables. Unfortunately, many Americans are not getting the message. Dr. Seung-Hee Lee Kwan is with CDC's National Center for Chronic Disease Prevention and Health Promotion. She's joining us today to discuss the importance of eating enough fruits and vegetables. Welcome to the show, Seung-Hee.
Thank you for having me.
Seung-Hee, what is the recommended amount of fruits and vegetables?
The federal guidelines recommend that adults consume at least 1.5 cups to 2 cups of fruit and 2 to 3 cups of vegetables each day. This is for adults who get less than 30 minutes of physical activity a day. Adults who are more physically active need more calories and thus should be eating more fruits and vegetables. 1 cup is about 12 strawberries or 1 large tomato.
How many people consume the recommended amount of fruits and vegetables?
We found that very few adults are getting enough fruits and vegetables. Just 12% are eating the recommended amount of fruits, and less than 1 in 10 eat enough vegetables. And consumption is lower among men, young adults, and adults living in poverty.
Why is eating a diet rich in fruits and vegetables so important?
Eating a diet rich in fruits and vegetables can help with 3 things. 1, it can reduce the risk of many leading causes of illness and deaths, such as heart disease, type 2 diabetes, some cancers, and even obesity. It can also add important nutrients that are commonly missing in Americans' diet. And it can help with weight management if adults consume fruits and vegetables instead of other calorie-dense foods.
How can we meet the recommended daily intake of fruits and vegetables?
Try to fill half of your plate with fruits or vegetables at each meal or every eating occasion. Making fruits and vegetables the focal point of your meal will help you meet your recommendations. For example, recent studies have shown that adults get most of their fruit during breakfast and snacks. So you can try adding berries to your morning oatmeal or grab a piece of fresh fruit as an afternoon snack. For vegetables, most adults eat them at dinner, so try adding more into your lunch by adding a side salad or packing a snack of baby carrots or grape tomatoes.
Are canned or frozen products just as good as fresh?
All forms of fruits and vegetables count towards meeting the recommendations. For the most health benefits, make sure that the fruits and vegetables you consume have a limited amount of salt, butter, sugar, or creamy sauces. When selecting canned fruits, choose the ones with lowest sugars. And for canned or frozen vegetables, choose those lower in sodium.
Where can listeners get more information about eating a healthy diet?
Listeners can go to cdc.gov/nutrition or choosemyplate.gov.
Thanks, Seung-hee. I've been talking today with Seung-hee Lee Kwon about the importance of eating a healthy diet. Eating a diet rich in fruits and vegetables can help reduce the risk of many leading causes of illness and death and add important nutrients to your diet. Make sure you're eating enough. Until next time, be well. This is Dr. Kathleen Dooling for A Cup of Health with CDC.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO. This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Heart disease and stroke can be catastrophic. They're leading causes of death, disability, and healthcare spending in the U.S., yet they're largely preventable. Alarmingly, heart disease and stroke are taking a toll on middle-aged adults 35 to 64, with over 800,000 deaths and hospitalizations in 2016. Million Hearts is a national initiative focused on preventing 1 million heart attacks, strokes, and other cardiovascular events by 2022. Coordinated actions by Million Hearts partners in communities, healthcare, and public health will keep people healthy, optimize care, and improve outcomes in populations at risk. Everyone has a part to play. Focus on the ABCs of heart health. A. Aspirin use when appropriate. B. Blood pressure control. C. Cholesterol management. And S. Smoking cessation. To learn more, visit cdc.gov/vital signs.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO. This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Colorectal cancer is the number 2 cancer killer of men and women in the United States, but it is preventable. Early on, colorectal cancer typically has no symptoms. It starts with a precancerous polyp or abnormal growth in the colon, which can be removed without surgery. Several tests are available to find these polyps, so they can be removed before they turn into cancer. Screening also finds colorectal cancer early when treatment works best. Recommended screening for adults at average risk begins at age 50 and continues until age 75. Learn about screening test options and find out which tests are covered by insurance. Talk to your healthcare provider about when you should be screened and discuss the best tests for you. For more information about colorectal cancer prevention, please visit cdc.gov/vital signs.
For the most accurate health information, visit cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
I'm probably okay to have one more drink before I drive home. I'm probably okay. I open the window to stay alert. Probably okay. I just popped some gum in my mouth.
Step out of the car, please.
I probably made a mistake.
Probably okay isn't okay when it comes to drinking and driving. If you see a warning sign, stop and call a cab, a car, or a friend. Buzzed driving is drunk driving. A message brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Hi, it's Tom. Could we humbly suggest your donation to netrootsradio.com? All we've got to run this 24-hour powerhouse of progressive resistance radio is what comes out of our own wallets. And you are our biggest donor. And it doesn't take much, $3, $5. Just go to the bottom of our netrootsradio.com page and hit our secure donate button. Heck, you can even make a recurring contribution, and you'll get a wondiferous pair of Netroots radio stickers for application to your backpack, your bumper sticker, or your banjo. Well, it's up to you which backpack you want to put it on. So donate what you'd like at the bottom of our netrootsradio.com's homepage, because you are our biggest donor. netrootsradio.com. Together, we are Resistance Radio.
This Civil Liberties Minute is the second in a series about the president's pardon power. I'm Bill Newman. According to Harvard Law professor Jack Goldsmith, of the 65 pardons that President Trump had bestowed as of December 23rd, he's given 60 to people who have helped him politically or who have personal ties to him, including family, like Charles Kushner, and political operatives who had lied to the FBI to protect him, like Roger Stone, and his first national security advisor, Michael Flynn, and white-collar thieves who had politically supported him, like former California Congressman Duncan Hunter. Worth noting, a president wielding his pardon power near the end of his term is not unprecedented. Bill Clinton issued 175 pardons his last day in office, including one to his half-brother Roger for drug charges and one, to wide criticism, to Mark Rich, a fugitive and financier whose ex-wife had donated a chunk of money to the future Clinton presidential library. So, the Constitution's broad power to grant pardons and commutations allows the pardons, but that fact does not necessarily end the story, because when it comes to pardons, Congress definitely can investigate and perhaps can legislate as well. And some legal scholars argue that if there was a quid pro quo for a pardon, such an action could violate federal criminal law and put the people involved at risk, which means that chapters in the story of Trump's pardons may well remain to be written. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU, because freedom can't protect itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1970. That was the day that President Richard Milhous Nixon signed the Occupational Safety and Health Act into law. At the time, it was estimated that 14,000 workers died annually on the job. 2.2 million workers were permanently or temporarily disabled, and 500,000 developed occupational diseases each year. The Department of Labor admitted at the time that at least 25 million serious injuries and deaths went unreported each year. Statistics like these prompted occupational health and safety expert Dr. Gene Stellman to state, "Each day, millions of workers in America enter a battlefield, but they fight no foreign enemy and conquer no foreign lands. The battlefield is the American workplace, and the casualties of this war are higher than those of any other in the nation's history." Industrial unions surveyed thousands of members regarding health and safety conditions. They documented deplorable working conditions, debilitating injuries, mystery diseases, and early fatalities of their coworkers. Their testimonies provided the ammunition necessary to fight for OSHA. The Act established the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, responsible for standards, regulation, and enforcement. It also established the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, responsible for research and recommendations. The Act served as a milestone. It provided the formal legal basis for which workers could fight to qualitatively change their lives at the workplace. The General Duty Clause established that workplaces must be free of hazards and allow workers to demand inspections. The Act also mandated medical record keeping, surprise inspections, and enforcement. Many of the standards, regulations, and enforcements OSHA now has have come as a result of intense, continuous pressure waged by the labor movement. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Tarrytown Chowder Tuesdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River, in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 21 degrees Fahrenheit with fog, which means it's icy fog. We're expected to be a bit cooler today than yesterday, topping out probably only around 43. We got up to about 46 yesterday. Cloudy skies this morning will become partly cloudy in the afternoon. Winds will be light and variable and continue so into tonight, where cloudy conditions will prevail with lows around 30. And then tomorrow, showers early, becoming a steady rain later in the day, high around 44 or so. Winds will be out of the south-southeast at 5 to 10 miles per hour, with nearly a quarter inch of rain only during the day, and then about another quarter inch or more overnight. Confirmed coronavirus cases in Jackson County in the southern part of Oregon have now risen to 5,685, with 68 confirmed deceased. Pollen is rated as none right outside the window in the mothership here in Rogue River proper. The air quality index for the region is good at 26 parts per million, and the daytime UV index remains low at its wintertime low of 1. Barometric pressure is holding steady at 30.34 inches. Visibility is down to 1/4 mile, and relative humidity is at 99%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. London is 39 and cloudy. Paris is 41 with rain. Rome is 57 and partly cloudy. Kyiv is 38 with drizzle and fog. Kabul is 30 degrees with their wintertime smoke. Hong Kong is 65 and clear. Tokyo is 50 and partly cloudy. Sydney, Australia is 65 and cloudy. San Francisco, California is 43 degrees and sunny. And New York is 37 degrees Fahrenheit and mostly cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by people's personal weather stations that they purchased. These people planted these purchased personal weather stations somewhere on their property, and these people positively live around the world. Anonymous worker bees at Reuters bring us this first amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Switzerland will return $150 million from blocked Swiss accounts by the end of the year to the U.S. to be given to victims of convicted Ponzi scheme con artist Robert Allen Stanford, the Federal Ministry of Justice said. Stanford, a former Texas financier, known primarily by his middle name, was convicted of fraud by a Houston jury in 2012 in what prosecutors called a $7.2 billion with a B fraud scheme that lasted 2 decades and which was eclipsed in size only by the Ponzi scheme run by Bernie Madoff. About $50 million had previously been returned. In October, the Swiss criminal court had rejected appeals against the seizure of the assets, paving the way for the remaining $150 million to be returned by the end of December, and we're almost there. Stanford, now serving a 110-year prison term, had stashed millions from his Antigua-based Stanford International Bank at the Swiss arm of the French bank Société Générale, which he tapped regularly to fund a fleet of private jets and a 100-foot yacht. The release of the blocked funds became possible after the American financier Allen Stanford's fraud conviction became permanent, the Swiss Justice Ministry said in a statement. According to a 2012 sentencing memorandum, U.S. federal prosecutors said Stanford was a ruthless predator who routed $116 million in proceeds through a Swiss slush fund he controlled at Société Générale. The bank spent years fighting allegations that it had not adequately upheld its anti-money laundering obligations in accepting Stanford's money. A bank spokesman contacted by Reuters declined to comment.
Je te donne c'est mon amour pour la vie entière. La promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers, c'est tout.
Even more anonymous worker bees at Reuters bring us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Russia's prison service gave Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny a last-minute ultimatum: fly back from Germany at once and report at a Moscow office early today, or be jailed if you return after that deadline. Navalny, one of Putin's leading critics, was airlifted to Germany for treatment in August after collapsing on a plane in what Germany and other Western nations say was an attempt to murder him with a Novichok nerve agent. Russia has said it has seen no evidence he was poisoned and has denied any involvement in the incident like they have with all the other convenient incidents. The Federal Prison Service accused Navalny of violating the terms of a suspended prison sentence he is still serving over a conviction dating from 2014 and of evading the supervision of Russia's Criminal Inspection Authority. Citing an article in the British medical publication The Lancet about his treatment, it said Navalny had been discharged from hospital in Berlin on the 20th of September and that all symptoms of what he called his illness had vanished by October 12. Therefore, the convicted man is not fulfilling all of the obligations placed on him by the court, and he is evading the supervision of the Criminal Inspectorate. Navalny is serving out a suspended 3.5-year prison term over a theft case what he says was politically motivated, and his probation period expires on December 30th, tomorrow. The prison service said that it had summoned Navalny to report to the inspection authority and that his suspended sentence could be changed to a real jail term if his suspected violations of the terms of the suspended sentence were proven to be true. In other words, he's still being treated for being poisoned, and they want him back now. Okay, sounds convenient. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio will broadcast on, and we're going to meet up tomorrow for Smothered Benedict Wednesdays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks, and we'll meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.